Hello, you're watching RT live from the heart of the Russian capital. The CIA is releasing a report which reveals how the agency has been interrogating detainees at its secret prisons. The 2004 review, which had been suppressed until now, is reported to contain details of how CIA officers carried out mock executions to frighten terrorism suspects into giving information. In the wake of the report, the US Justice Department is calling for a host of prisoner abuse cases to be reopened. And President Barack Obama has approved the creation of a new interrogation unit led by an FBI official and directly supervised by the White House. Well, to talk more about the treatment of terror suspects under the Bush administration, we're now joined live from our Washington studio by RT's Priya Sridhar. Hello to you, Priya. Now, it seems Barack Obama is distancing himself from Bush's policies.
That's right. Well, it's also been reported that the CIA and Blackwater had a special relationship of their own. Now, Blackwater is a private military firm that had been contracted by the U.S. government to provide security services to top U.S. officials in Iraq. And just a few years ago, the Iraqi government revoked Blackwater's license to operate in that country because of an incident in which 17 Iraqis were killed. And now it's been reported that the CIA and Blackwater had their own relationship. They say that the CIA hired people from Blackwater to assassinate top members of al-Qaeda. Well, joining me to discuss this is Professor Lawrence Wilkerson from the George Washington University, who is also the former chief of staff for Colin Powell. Thanks so much for joining me. First of all, if you could tell me, how common is it for the CIA to contract services out to a firm like Blackwater?
This is a very common thing. It has been a common thing since the late 80s, early 90s in this country. It's the way a president like George W. Bush or vice president like Dick Cheney can get around congressional in-strength requirements on government organizations, like the armed forces, for example. We double the strength of the armed forces by hiring contractors to do a lot of the things the armed forces should be doing. And we do the same thing with the intelligence community.
And how successful was this program? And is it legal for the government to go about assassinating people?
That's a good question. My military friends and others with whom I've discussed this don't believe it's assassination. After all, the Congress gave the president as commander-in-chief power to wage war against terrorists. And in war, when you're killing your enemy, it's not assassination. But when you start talking about Predator and Reaper and hit squads and so forth, Predator and Reaper being the drones we're operating over Afghanistan today, it's a really dicey game you're playing. It's very difficult morally and ethically to separate assassination from what you're doing from on high with these drones and from down below with special hit squads. And
could that be part of the reason that the CIA did keep this program a secret for so long?
I think that is obviously part of the reason. They didn't want, as they have throughout their 62-year history, programs that are questionable, legally and otherwise, to be known in their fullest details by their oversight committees in the Congress, or for that matter, by the President of the United States.
And so why did this information come out now?
We've got a real political Donnie Fest going on right now with the Republicans trying to do everything they can to embarrass President Obama, and the Democrats grudgingly but beginning to fight back dirty also. Some of this is political spite. Some of it is political one-upsmanship. And it's a shame in some respects because there needs to be a very close examination of what a lot of these contracted services are and who's doing them and how they're doing them, because it's gotten out of hand.
And, you know, just today it was announced that a federal prosecutor will investigate whether CIA interrogation practices were illegal. What can you tell us about that?
I think it's clear that some of their practices were illegal. I think it's clear that the lawyers who, if they did in fact give them legal blessing from the Department of Justice, were operating unethically. I now have discovered that we were actually waterboarding, which is clearly torture, several detainees before the Office of Legal Counsel in the Department of Justice ever rendered a legal opinion. So we've got some people treading on some very thin ice there who are actually doing this harsh interrogation, including waterboarding, before the 1 August memo was issued by the Office of Legal Counsel.
And so how will this change the way the CIA operates in the future? It seems like we're kind of looking back on a lot of Bush's counterterrorism policies, but how will this change things from here on out?
I'm not sure. I doubt that it'll do much to change the clandestine side of the Central Intelligence Agency. I've made a study of the agency since 1947 when it was created formally, and the OSS during World War II before that. And let's just say that the agency's skirts are not covered with glory.
And we've also been hearing a lot about these secret prisons that the CIA had. What have you heard about those?
They were, I think, in a number of countries, Poland, Morocco. I've even heard now we had one in Afghanistan. We may have had one in Lithuania, maybe some other countries. This is where you bring people who otherwise would be your friends and allies and make them complicit in your dirty dealing. And I don't think that's good for alliances. I don't think that's good for friendships. And let's face it, you're bringing them into the international illegalities of what you're doing, too. So I think it's good that President Obama has shut all this down.
Well, it's certainly interesting information, and we'll continue to update you on how the CIA changes, if it does change at all. But for now, back